This video is going to be headache-inducing stuff. Viki's current known appearances in the games take place over the course of 169 years, between the solar year 306 to 475, and despite each game taking place over the course of 6 months to 3 years each, she remains 16 years old in each game. So what is the deal with Viki? In what order is she experiencing the games? Why isn't she aging? Some people think Viki experiences the events of the games in order of release date, the same as we, the players, did. Others think she experiences the games in chronological order, timeline-wise. However, neither of these are likely to be true. First, let's do a quick breakdown of her appearances in each game. In Suikoden 1, she appears in the Great Forest, and one of the first things she says is, "My goodness, almost the other side." What does this mean? The other side of the world? The other side of the continent? Who knows? In Suikoden 2, she appears in the forest between Greenhill and Matilda with a knife and fork in hand, as if she just teleported from a feast. Richmond's investigations explain that she was just celebrating the birth of the Tauren Republic. In Suikoden Volume 2, she crash lands on top of Nash while eating, indicating she arrived from a feast. In Suikoden 3, she appears in the mountain path between the grasslands and Caleria, where she says, "I'll miss tonight's big meal, and maybe more." When Hugo asks where she's from, she replies, "A place called the city-state of Joustin." That's the place. However, the outfit she's wearing in Suikoden 3 is completely different from her outfit in Suikoden 2. In Suikoden 4, she appears at the bridge on Ney Island, confused that she just blinked into a new place. And in Suikoden 5, she appears outside the ruins of Ceres Lake. She again claims to have arrived from a feast. Now, as the blinking mirror is connected to Viki, let's look at the blinking mirror. The blinking mirror is two parts. There's the large mirror that you place in your headquarters that you teleport to, and a smaller handheld mirror that you carry around, which you look into and it teleports you back to the large mirror. In Suikoden 1, during the years 455 to 457, both parts of the blinking mirror are possessed by Hellion. In Suikoden 2, during the year 460, both parts of the blinking mirror are in the possession of the Tauren Republic, until they're gifted to Ryu by President Lapant. In Suikoden 3, during the year 475, it's a little confusing. Older Viki claims to have just arrived from the banquet before the celebration after the events of Suikoden 2, is in possession of the larger part of the blinking mirror, while child Viki is in possession of the smaller handheld mirror. In Suikoden 4, during the years 306 to 307, both parts are possessed by Viki. And in Suikoden 5, during the years 449 to 450, both parts are also possessed by Viki. Now there's another issue, her clothing. In Suikoden 1, Suikoden 2, and Suikoden Volume 2, she's wearing the same outfit. In Suikoden 3, she claims she arrived from Joustin and will miss tonight's big feast, but her outfit is completely different from the outfit she was wearing in Suikoden 2. In Suikoden 4, her outfit is completely different again. And in Suikoden 5, her outfit is once again completely different. Now that could be explained as she changed her outfit between the end of the war and the banquets after each war. Now we know for certain that her appearance in Suikoden 2 comes after her appearance in Suikoden 1. Richmond's investigations state she arrived directly from the birth of the Tauren Republic. She also has a scene with MacDull in Banner Village, and she also mistakenly leaves a letter addressed to Tyr in the suggestion box. She very clearly remembers Tyr, so this appearance certainly comes after Suikoden 1. So the only thing right now we can say for a fact is that we know the order of her appearances are Suikoden 1 to Suikoden 2. At this point, many people state her next appearance comes in Suikoden 3, as during her recruitment scene in Suikoden 3, she claims she came from Joustin when Hugo asks where she's from. But is that true? She could very well be lying. If you remember what I said about Viki's response to Hugo, a place called the city-state of Joustin, that's the place. That's the place part of the response seems kind of odd, does it not? Almost as if Joustin is the first place she remembered. Also, her appearance in Suikoden Volume 2 somewhat contradicts her recruitment scene in Suikoden 3. This is where it starts getting messy. Did her appearance in Suikoden 3 come directly after Suikoden 2? What about Suikoden Volume 2, which takes place before 3? Do her other appearances come before Suikoden 1? Do they come after Suikoden 3? Were there intended to be other appearances in other Suikoden games that never got made that would plug in the gaps? I'm going to give a rundown of the events of Viki's appearance in Suikoden Volume 2. It might be a little long, so bear with me as there is a reason for it. In Suikoden Volume 2, she appears in a forest and crash-landed on top of Nash while eating a steamed bun and drinking a cup of tea. Viki comments, "What? What happened to the party? And the feast?" So clearly she was already in the middle of the party while she teleported away. During this appearance, Gadget seems to be aware of time travel, making several comments about time slipping throughout Viki's appearance. Nash eventually picks up on it and starts to understand what's happening, leaving both Meg and Millie confused. He promises to explain it to them later, but later never comes. Between each teleport, Viki would teleport the group to a mysterious place she called her home, though seemingly not her real home. Viki would comment how surprised she was to be back here after so long, so clearly she hadn't been here in a very long time. This home is a very strange place with no windows, filled with corridors and doors of varying sizes and staircases. Gadget is unable to calculate the coordinates and location of this mysterious place. The doors appeared to be gateways to different places and times in the Suikoden world. Millie would open one of the doors and it teleported the group to Tony's farm in the future, where they'd meet Tony and his daughter, along with a grown-up Yuzu and an adult version of Meg. At the end of the meeting, adult Meg would comment remembering the journey, "Oh, don't tell me this is when," and then promising to tell Tony and Yuzu all about it over dinner. From there, Viki teleports them back to her mysterious home. Next, they get teleported to the middle of a duel between Valeria and Anita, before returning once again to her home. They then get teleported to Apple, Sheena and Ulan, who are on a journey to the Crystal Valley in Harmonia. During this encounter, Sheena comments that, "As for Viki, I'm pretty sure she disappeared in the middle of the party again." Once again teleporting back to Viki's home, and then being teleported away to Felena in the past, from before the events of Suikoden 5, where they would appear in the deep Twilight Forest ruins and meet Lorelei and Killy. Meg would recognise them both and commented, "Oh, I do remember that you said some pretty strange things when we first met." To which Viki replies, Oh, that happens to me a lot too, Meg." So clearly this is showing that events are happening out of order for Viki. From Viki's perspective, she often hasn't met the people who claim to know her, leading to Viki often being confused. After this, they teleport away to a forest sometime after the events of Suikoden 2, where they find Ryu, Nanami and Joey. It's revealed by Meg and Millie that after the war, Shu gathered everyone in the Great Hall, and told them that if they ever see Ryu, Nanami and Joey, they're to pretend that they don't know them. Viki then chases after Nanami, calling out her name. Meg comments, since Viki disappeared during the feast, she didn't get to hear what Shu said. Nash manages to catch her and they get teleported back to her home. Millie would then once again open the door and the group would find themselves stranded on a lone island in the middle of the ocean for a week. They find themselves back in Viki's home, and they ask her to teleport them back to where they originally started in the forest she originally found them in. After some wacky, airheaded dialogue between the three girls, they finally agree to go to the front door of the house to safely teleport back to the forest. But Viki gets lost in her own home. There she meets her young self, a child version of herself. Child Viki shows them the way out to return to where they came from. Older Viki then asks child Viki her name, clearly having no clue who she is. Nash would ask the child Viki if she was the same as older Viki, to which she replied, "Some things are better not knowing." They make it back to the forest they were originally in, where an exhausted Viki who is being carried by Nash blurts out, "Wafu Ri," Wafu, the same thing Richmond's investigations in Suikoden 2 show that she says during her sleep. Also, Kid's investigations in Suikoden 3 show her as saying Wafu Refu during her sleep, many fans believing Wafu is the name of where she's from. They stumbled across a village and Nash would part ways with the group, and that's the end of her involvement in Suikoden Volume 2. So the reason for giving the big rundown of her involvement in Suikoden Volume 2 is because, as I mentioned earlier, in Suikoden 3 during Viki's recruitment scene, she mentions being from the city-state of Joustin, and that she's going to miss tonight's big meal, and more. But if that's true, why do both Meg and Sheena comment in Suikoden Volume 2 that Viki disappeared during the feast, while Viki in Suikoden 3 says she disappeared before the feast? The statements contradict one another. Also, why did her outfit change? She's wearing a completely different outfit between 2 and 3, yet her outfit in 2 and Suikoden Volume 2 are the exact same. Why does she only possess the larger blinking mirror and not the smaller handheld mirror? When Child Viki appears shortly after, she possesses the smaller handheld mirror. Where did she get it from? How did Child Viki come into possession of part of the blinking mirror? But not only that, Child Viki seems fully aware of when and where her older self is about to appear, as well as being much more intelligent than her older self. And despite Viki meeting Child Viki in Suikoden Volume 2, she acts like this is the first time they're meeting each other during the recruitment scene in Suikoden 3. Now, you can try to explain this away by saying all the time travel is frying her brain and turning her into a ditzy airhead, but she has been shown to remember people and details. In Suikoden 4, when she arrives, she makes a rather interesting comment. If I came flying here, does that mean you guys are the people who are supposed to protect me? This indicates to me that this seems to be a common occurrence for her at this point, where she teleports away to a new land and a Tenkai star takes her in and protects her. Also, during her bath scene with Jean, she clearly remembers sharing a bath with Jean before. However, Suikoden 4 is the only game in the series where Viki and Jean have shared a bath together. From Viki's perspective, this could have happened at any point in time, even far into the future. However, for Jean to remember Viki, or for Jean to have any recollection of this bath happening, it would have had to have happened before the events of Suikoden 4. But with the exception of Jean possibly having a connection to the old army's kingdom, we know nothing about Jean or Viki's activities or encounters before the events of Suikoden 4, which timeline-wise is the earliest entry in the series, taking place in the years 306 and 307. In Suikoden 5, upon meeting Viki, she makes an odd remark about Falena. What? Is that place still around? Indicating that she's heard of the Queendom of Falena long ago in the past. Suikoden 5 takes place in the years 449 and 450. Now, she may have heard of Falena during her time in the Island Nations 143 years ago during the time of Suikoden 4, or she may have heard of Falena a much longer time ago, as the origins of the Queendom of Falena date back to roughly 250 years before the solar calendar began, making Falena roughly 700 years old by the events of Suikoden 5, the oldest known nation in the Suikoden world. During her recruitment scene, she also makes a comment about missing another big feast. And during her bat scene with Lorelei, Lorelei confronts Viki about being the one she saw in the deep Twilight Forest ruins, but Viki denies any knowledge of this. So, for this to make sense, her appearance in Suikoden 5 has to happen before her appearance in Suikoden Volume 2, otherwise she would remember. Now we can start breaking down the theories. If Viki appears in order of the game's releases and experiences the events of the games as the player did, then surely she would recognise Lorelei in Suikoden 5, as Suikoden Volume 2 was released in 2001, and Suikoden 5 was released in 2006. She also makes a comment in Suikoden Volume 2 to Meg, saying that, oh, that happens to me a lot too, Meg. Basically meaning that characters often recognise Viki, but Viki has no idea who they are. The reason for this is that from their perspective they're meeting Viki again, while from Viki's perspective they've never met before, at least timeline-wise. If Viki's appearances are all in order of the game's release, how does she not remember the deep Twilight Forest runes? How does she not recognise Lorelei, Killy and George in Suikoden 5? As for the people who say her appearances come in order of the timeline, it's also unlikely to be true. For starters, the blinking mirror. Viki doesn't come into possession of the blinking mirror until after the events of Suikoden 2. Basically, her first time officially with the blinking mirror would have been in the year 460, after the Dunnan Unification War, as it was owned by Hellion in Suikoden 1 and the Tauren Republic in Suikoden 2 until it was gifted to you. And yet, she possesses the mirror during the events of Suikoden 4, which is 154 years in the past, as well as possessing the mirror during Suikoden 5, which is 11 years in the past. Now it gets even more confusing. If the Viki who appeared in Suikoden 3 claims to have arrived directly from Joustin, and she possesses the larger part of the blinking mirror, then how did younger Viki have the smaller hand mirror? She never appeared in Suikoden 2, but she did appear in Suikoden Volume 2, which took place several months after Suikoden 2, which would have been roughly 14 years before Suikoden 3. Now I suppose at some point during the events of Suikoden 5 and Suikoden 1, she may have lost the blinking mirror and it may have been found by Hellion. Or as a small portion of the fans theorized over the years, maybe Hellion is an old Viki, though there's no evidence at all to back that up. Now we know she has to have appeared in Suikoden 2 after Suikoden 1, thanks to a scene with MacDull, Richmond's investigations and her letter to MacDull in the suggestion box. And that she has to have appeared in Suikoden 5 before Suikoden Volume 2. If she appeared in Suikoden Volume 2 first, then surely she would have recognised Lorelei during the scenes in Suikoden 5. And based on her comments in Suikoden 5 about the Queendom of Falena, and being shocked that it still exists, either her appearance in 4 has to come before Suikoden 5, or she must have appeared at some point even further in the past than Suikoden 4, before her appearance in Suikoden 5. So to try and make sense of it based on her current appearances, Suikoden 1 must come first. She then appears in Suikoden 2 immediately following the events of Suikoden 1. Now, because of contradictory dialogue in Suikoden Volume 2 and Suikoden 3, plus her outfit change, it seems likely that following Suikoden 2, her next appearance is Suikoden Volume 2. She's wearing the same outfit as 2. She teleported in the middle of a feast. Sheena and Meg both confirm she teleported mid-feast. And Viki recognises Meg, Millie and Nanami throughout her chapter. So it seems likely Suikoden Volume 2 directly follows her appearance in Suikoden 2. And in Suikoden 3 she claims she arrived directly from Joustin before the big feast. But if that's true, why is she wearing a different outfit? And why does she only possess one half of the blinking mirror? So you can see why her timeline is messy. Her appearances contradict one another. And if her appearance in Suikoden 3 comes before her appearance in Suikoden Volume 2, then why does she not recognise her child self when she meets her in Suikoden Volume 2, as she would have met her during the events of Suikoden 3? After Suikoden 3, she teleports everyone away to their hometowns, but child Viki chases after her, possibly worried that something will go horribly wrong and Viki will displace everyone throughout time. As for Suikoden 4 and 5, her outfit in 4 is completely different from her outfit in 3, and her outfit in 5 is completely different from her outfit in 4. Viki's dialogue makes her seem less ditzy and airheaded in both games compared to previous entries. This could be explained by Yoshitaka Murayama no longer being involved in the series. New writers took over, possibly with new ideas. And as by Murayama's own admission in an interview in 2016 with the Suikoden revival movement, details were never fleshed out, and they never kept a record of all events. Now based on her ending in Suikoden 3 and what happens between Suikoden 2 and Suikoden 3, it appears likely that she went on some more of her wacky time-travelling escapades between these appearances. But if that's true, and Child Viki was chasing after her, why did we never see Child Viki again? Why did she not appear in Suikoden 4 or Suikoden 5? My guess is that future games were intended that would have plugged in gaps in Viki's timeline. If you want to ignore the existence of the blinking mirror and write it off as just a game mechanic, then you can pretend her appearances are timeline-wise. But you can't write off the blinking mirror as a game mechanic due to in-game dialogue from President LaPont. If you want to say that her appearances are in the order of the game's release dates, then you also can't do that due to contradictions. Suikoden Volume 2 released 5 years before Suikoden 5. How did she not recognise Lorelei or Killy? How did she not remember accidentally saving them from the deep Twilight Forest ruins? Why in Suikoden 5 did she not know them? Why is there contradictory dialogue about her disappearance in Suikoden 2, with Meg and Sheena saying she disappeared during the feast, while Viki claiming she disappeared before the feast, saying she'll miss tonight's big feast? Why is her outfit in Suikoden 3 different from her outfit in Suikoden 2 if she claims she arrived directly from Suikoden 2? Yet her outfit in Suikoden Volume 2 is identical to her outfit in Suikoden 2. There are other possibilities. All of the teleporting through time that she's doing is frying her brain and making her forgetful. Or perhaps she could just be playing stupid to throw off suspicion, as to not mess up the timeline by saying things about future events, and thus altering the timeline. And there are other questions. Why is she not aging during the games? How is she still 16? Shouldn't she have aged? Some people speculate she has a true rune, though many people in the fandom try to dispute this, but Konami have never confirmed that she does or doesn't, so it is a possibility. Or does she not age while displaced in time? Perhaps being out of her own timeline in the past or the future causes her to not age. It's fantasy, so who knows how it works. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, you've all just listened to me ramble for 10-15 minutes just to say that I don't have a clue. And to be honest, neither do you. Viki's timeline is a mess, and it's clear there are many gaps in her story that are yet to be told and explored. If you have any theories or ideas about Viki, or if you'd like more theory videos, please let me know in the comments below.